Okay.
We're going on vibes today.
Yeah, no notes?
No notes.
Okay.
Only vibes. Do you have a preference? Would you rather dragons and Chinese mythology or sci-fi utopia?
I don't know. We just went through Lunar New Year, so I feel like I'm feeling sci-fi.
You're feeling sci-fi?
Yeah, just because we went through all the Lunar New Year stuff.
Okay. So we're going to do Scyth,
Okay.
which I have many notes on.
Okay. So you do have notes.
Well, they're in the book. I
Yeah.
annotated the book. So Scyth is... The tagline on Scyth is "Thou shalt kill," which is very interesting. This is a very eye-catching tagline.
Yeah.
So the idea is that humanity has eliminated hunger and disease, and anything basically that can kill you, including old age. And
So
you can reset yourself. So when you get to like 80, you can reset yourself back to 20.
Okay.
And because of this, we have yet to solve population control.
So my question is, why would you wait till 80? Like, why wouldn't you?
You can reset yourself anytime.
Is it just like a button?
I think you have to pay for it.
Oh.
This is another problem.
They still have a need for currency in
Yeah.
this perfect world?
Yes.
Okay.
They still have a need for currency. You can reset yourself back down to like a level where you're like young and fit, and then you can find yourself a new mate and divorce.
I was so fit when I was young. I was not. I was the same size.
And you can find yourself a new mate. But then you haven't solved population control.
Okay, so that's their big dystopian part of this utopia.
Yeah, so you don't die, nobody dies of natural causes anymore, except for fire. Apparently fire, that one you can't come back from.
Can I still do a crime?
Nobody does crime anymore.
But they still have population problems and money?
They still have problems with...
How does nobody do crime anymore? Hold on a second, they still have money.
They do still have money. So we're giving the premise of the book. You still have all these issues where the Earth cannot sustain an ever-growing exponential population. Especially now because people live forever. They have like 16, 20 plus children.
Yeah.
So the Earth cannot sustain that amount of growth.
If nobody's dying,
If nobody's dying,
resources are just getting sapped.
Yeah. So what they've done is they've created the Scythes, which are like Grim Reapers, but they don't call them Grim Reapers because they're like, we don't want them to be associated with death and depression.
It's kind of too late for that. You called them a scythe.
And so they do what's called gleaning. They cull the population. Based on statistics of how many people died before.
Okay, so they're just going based off of old data and they're like, we have to hit a quota?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess some of the Scythes, that's what you're introduced to. And Scythes have to choose apprentices because Scythes basically are the only people who can kill themselves.
Okay.
So nobody can kill a Scythe, but a Scythe can kill themselves.
Okay. So do you have to go through like an apprenticeship or do you get named and then they're like, all right, goodbye?
No, so they choose an apprentice. They train the apprentice for a year, and then the apprentice gets tested, and if they pass the test, then they become a Scythe. And then they can kill as well.
So is there a finite amount of scythes though?
Yes, there's supposed to be a finite amount based on the population density of the area that they're in.
So my question is, let's say, so this guy's a master and he teaches you, you're an apprentice, and you graduate.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't want to be a scythe anymore.
He kills himself.
What if he doesn't want to kill himself?
He can't.
What?
You can't leave.
That's not fair.
You can't become not a scythe.
This is the worst utopia ever.
So the premise of this book is that two people get chosen by one scythe to take over his mantle.
Okay.
And they get chosen basically against their will, and they have to decide whether they're going to try and master the quote-unquote art of being a scythe, or whether they're going to just like try and fail and not become a scythe.
Okay.
Okay?
So what happens if you fail because you said you can't leave?
You just go back to being a regular person.
Oh,
because you're not a scythe yet. If you're an apprentice, you're not a scythe.
So if you don't want to be a scythe, why don't you just fail?
There you go. But people like being Scythes because it's power.
People are weird.
Because what happens, the society basically, you can't kill a Scythe, you can't resist a Scythe's gleaning. If you're chosen to be gleaned, you can't resist it because your whole family will be killed.
Yeah, but how do they know that I'm not trying? I'm like, whoops, I dropped the gun. Oh no, I fell.
I don't know.
Guess this guy's getting away from me now.
I don't know. But I'm kind of confused by this utopia. The idea of this utopia is that it originated when AI developed its own consciousness.
Uh-huh.
And so AI computers became so good that they could actually compute everything in the known universe.
Yeah, I don't trust my toaster to do that. That's not a good idea. You know, I don't trust him to choose my breakfast. I usually tell my things what I want it to do.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was well written. It's very interesting. I started the novel and I was like, I had a lot of questions about the utopia. I was like, I don't understand. Why do we still work jobs? Why do we still have elites? Why do we still have a currency system?
So there's a caste system?
There's not a caste system, but there's elites and then there's regular people, but there's no poor people.
But I was gonna say, so what differentiates anybody? Money? That's a finite resource that will go away?
Yeah.
Do people work jobs?
Yes.
Why do you still work?
I don't know.
Isn't that the whole point of the robot takeover, that you don't have to do work anymore?
The robot, I guess, can't do the jobs. It, can't build the roads. It just tells you where to build the roads. There's no government anymore either. It's very confusing.
This sounds bullshit.
I was like, I don't really understand this utopia. This doesn't sound like true utopia to me.
That's what I mean. Like, they go, everything's perfect, but this one thing. And I go, no, there's a lot of problems. I don't like that and this, and this doesn't make any sense.
Uh-huh.
And I go, if we solved everything in the world and we just leave it to a computer to decide for us, then why do I still have to work my job every
There's no
day?
Government.
Yeah.
There's no war.
What am I working for?
The computer controls everything, including the airplanes. It's very confusing.
Yeah, so what is my job then in this world?
I don't know. There's no point to having a job anymore.
Yeah, you don't have lawyers. There's no conflict.
No.
There's no crime, I guess, so there's no police officers.
No. Oh, there are peace officers.
What do they do?
For the small amount of crime that there is.
I thought you said there was no crime.
Nobody can be really murdered anymore.
Yeah, but you can be locked away. In my mind, that's far worse than being murdered. It's just being locked up for eternity.
I guess they say that the main thing that happens is some people steal sometimes for kicks and giggles because you don't have to. I'm very confused by it.
Yeah, if you don't need to steal, if you can just have everything you want, why is it a crime even?
I don't know. There's money, but I don't understand how, if you don't have a job, do you have no money? Is there a universal basic income? I don't understand. They never answered those questions.
This is like stealing a balloon on Free Balloon Day. You're like, oh, I'm so bad. I stole the balloon.
They don't really answer these questions to a satisfactory level, honestly. They answer some of them, but not all of them.
It just feels like a lack of world building, in my opinion, then.
Yeah, it's a little tough. Some of it I understand, where I'm like, okay, they're like, well, nobody really knows what to do, so we just kept doing what we were doing, and I'm like, that makes sense. That sounds like humanity.
I could see that.
That
but
sounds like us.
You don't have conflict anymore.
Yep.
You don't have any kind of conflict, war, sickness. I go, those are the major categories for an Asian child to go into. You're not a lawyer. You're not a doctor. You're not anything in law enforcement. What are you going to go into then? What? Are you going to be a piano prodigy? For what? The computer makes all the music.
Oh, yeah, but you can't really do art as well anymore either, because they say that the reason that we're so good at art before we become immortal is because we are mortal.
Exactly, so there's no pain.
There's no suffering.
You're going to have the worst tracks in the world. There's
Your
nothing.
tracks are just I couldn't get my stuff. That sucked. I
couldn't
had to
get
wait
out of
a
bed.
day.
Yeah. Oh, man. I couldn't get out of bed this morning. My life is so tough. I've experienced true pain. It was way too cold outside my blankie.
No, it wouldn't, because the Thunderhead controls that.
Oh my god. The guy's name is Thunderhead.
That's the AI, yeah.
The AI is Thunderhead.
Yeah, it went from the Cloud to the Thunderhead.
So is everything integrated with the Thunderhead?
Yeah, but not humans. Humans don't have a direct connection. You still have to like go to your computer and log onto the Thunderhead, or go to your iPad and log onto the Thunderhead. But like you can't access the Thunderhead from your brain.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. So you're still being controlled by the Thunderhead, essentially. It's just done through, I'm assuming, phones, tablets, computers.
Yeah. So you can be off grid. Anyway.
Did they ever? Sorry to cut you off. Did they ever talk about anybody who lived off grid?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's like a society of people who don't believe in it.
It's not a society. They talk about a couple of individuals who live out relatively off grid.
Okay, and they've like shunned the Thunderhead so they don't follow it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, there's always going to be people that are resistors to anything.
Yeah. And so then there's also... So the premise of the book is that these two characters, Citra and Rowan, become apprentices for the Scythe.
Mm-hmm.
And they essentially discover that the Scythedom isn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the Scythedom.
Okay.
Is not perfect, and they get pitted against each other in their apprenticeship and have to determine if one of them is going to live or one of them is going to die. So normally when you finish your apprenticeship and you're not chosen, you just walk away.
Yeah.
You're just not a Scythe anymore, but like you really can't go. But in this case, these two are pitted against each other in a mortal battle. So whoever wins the Scythedom, who becomes the Scythe, will have to glean the other one.
Why? Because
we'll get to that.
Whoa. Because through the rules that you just stated.
Yes, this is an exception.
This is what? The guy at the top's like, let's shake stuff up this year, guys. Let's really make a difference.
So they're chosen. They start their training, and they start to discover like the art of killing. And I don't really understand why they do this, but anyway. And then they get brought to a Scythe conference. So, like, you know how you have professional conferences? The Scythe has those, too.
Do they have a name tag and it's like, hi, this, and this is my kill count?
Apparently, they wear robes that are specific colors, so people know different Scythes by their robes.
Uh-huh. Who makes up the color system?
They get to choose their color.
Also, couldn't they have called it, like, the Scythe-ciety? Why do you kind of call it the Scythedom?
I don't know. But... they have this conference, and at the first conference, so their Scythe, the one that the two, Citra and Rowan, are training underneath, is called Scythe Faraday, because you choose an important historical figure from before the Age of Immortality.
What?
So people choose, like Marie Curie is one of the Scythes.
Okay.
So you take a name of a patron historic. So you take somebody who was famous, like somebody's Scythe name is Mandela.
Oh, okay.
I think there's like a Confucius somewhere.
Yeah, but so these like high Scythes or these actual Scythes are kind of given a moniker in a sense?
Yeah. So once you become a Scythe, you lose your mortal name or your immortal name.
You lose your normal person name.
You lose your normal person name and you become a Scythe. And so your name is like whatever they give you.
Okay.
Or whatever you choose.
Mm.
And then so Scythe Faraday brings his two apprentices to the first test, and one of the apprentices resolves that he's going to fail because he doesn't want to become a Scythe at all anyway. Okay. And Scythe Faraday is not very well liked by another Scythe. Scythe Goddard.
Okay.
And so Faraday, he has two apprentices that's very rare. It's like never been done before. So Goddard stands up at the conference and he's like, well, Faraday has two apprentices. That's never been done before. So I suggest something that also has never been done before. I suggest that when one of them fails, because he can only pass on the ring to one person, that the other person must die. And they're like, Faraday is like, that's bullshit. Like, I'm not going to do that. That's a terrible idea. Mm-hmm. And the Scythe, so like half of the Scythes are like, yeah, that's a terrible idea. And the other half of the Scythes are like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's kill more people.
Fight.
Okay. And they're like, and so then the guy who runs the Scythedom for this area is like, well, I guess we've ran out of time. I guess we're gonna do it. Bye.
What? He's just like, he doesn't call a vote?
No, he doesn't.
I feel like for something like that, you would want to vote within your Scythdom. And like, what's the point of that? That he just, unless he's like the high ruler and he goes, yeah, I'm for it, let's do it. Let's shake things up. I'm interested.
So he is like the high Scyth of their area. There's like different areas. So he's like Mid-America, which is, I guess, southern US. It doesn't, for some reason, include Central America, which I don't understand why.
Oh, okay.
But it's called Mid-America, and he's the controlling Scythe for that area. And then there's a World Scythdom conference that he goes to.
Okay.
But he has a secret that Goddard is blackmailing him on, and that's why he agrees to it.
Okay.
So then, this is like kind of in the back blurb, but now we're like getting into like far more spoilers. Is they get into this Mortal Kombat, and they are like, well, what are we gonna do? Like, so the guy Rowan basically resolves that he's gonna lose. He's gonna not become a Scythe, so that he can be gleaned by Citra. But Faraday kills himself. I'm sorry, I just spoiled it. Faraday dies.
Okay.
And
so then somebody else can get the two apprentices and there's a normal count because the master will kill himself?
No, so the normal thing that happens when a Scythe dies is that his apprentices, if he has any, or an apprentice in this case, which would be the normal, become released from their apprenticeship.
Oh, so they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if a Scythe dies while he is an apprentice, they get released. But not if another Scythe comes forward and volunteers to take one of them.
So, does not everybody have an apprentice?
Yeah.
Okay.
You only choose an apprentice when you feel like that person.
When you feel like you're ready.
When you feel like either the person that you're choosing is good for the Scythdom, or when you feel like you're ready to move on.
Okay.
So, like, if you want to increase the Scythdom, you choose an apprentice. If you want to move on, you choose an apprentice.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So, if a Scythe dies during the course of your apprenticeship because he killed himself, because that's the only way Scythes can die, then you are released from your apprenticeship. But not if another Scythe comes forward and volunteers to take over your apprenticeship.
Okay, so you might get to go jail-free, but then this other guy steps forward, I'm guessing, is like, I want them both.
Yeah, so Goddard steps forward and says, I want them both. And turns out that he gets Rowan. But Citra, somebody else steps forward and says, I want Citra.
Okay.
Scythe Marie Curie steps forward and says, I want Citra. So she takes over her training.
Yeah.
And then, basically, Citra and Rowan are trained very differently. Goddard is a psychopath.
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy killing other people, this is the job for you.
Yeah, so Faraday and Curie are very similar in that they don't actually enjoy their job. They just understand that it is important and something that they have to do. So they choose people based on the idea that they choose apprentices that would fight for people to live, because they think that somebody who values life is more important and should be a Scythe over somebody who doesn't.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you don't enjoy your work, but you recognize the importance of it.
Yes.
And you think it's better if it's coming from somebody who empathizes with you than somebody who just really wants to rip your guts out.
So they represent what's called the old guard of the Scythdom. This old mentality that killing is not something that we want to do, but is required of us. And so therefore they are empathetic and they try and take care of the families. They'll let people go if they think that somebody actually deserves to be let go, and then kill somebody else.
Yeah, okay.
So Faraday goes based off of like statistics from the old world. That's how he met Rowan, is he basically says, okay, like in the old world, 12% of teens would die of alcohol poisoning, or like would get drunk on alcohol and then cause an accident. And then he narrows it down by that, like of that, like X amount are jocks, of that jocks, X amount are quarterbacks. And so then he would narrow it down and try and find somebody who matches that like a quarterback who
Specific description.
Yeah, a quarterback who has a license, who also is known for intaking alcohol, underage, and then he'll find somebody who matches that description and kill them.
So we have underage drinking laws still? Whoa.
We also have schools still, which I don't understand either.
Yeah, if this is a
People
perfect
go to college.
society. Also, if the Thunderhead can teach you everything if it's all knowing, it can teach you.
If it's also okay, here's my problem. There's CEOs of companies who provide services and or items, like who provide here's this newest computer. If the Thunderhead is all knowing, does the person who becomes a CEO and who lands that company, are they just better at searching the Thunderhead's algorithm than other people?
It doesn't make any sense. There's no way.
Because they don't have to invent anything.
Yeah, they're trying to base a utopia off of capitalism, which is not how it works at all. And
The idea of utopia is anti-capitalism.
Yeah, because there's no reason to fight because you don't need to.
Right. So I just don't understand. I wonder, do people become elites? This becomes relevant later because Goddard takes over somebody's house. Do people become elites because they just searched the algorithm better than other people? And so if Elon Musk was in this world, our favorite ever person, would he have become, I guess he's essentially the guy that I'm talking about. He just found somebody who had a good idea and bankrolled them.
Yeah.
So in this world, he wouldn't find somebody who had a good idea. He would have just gone into the algorithm and had it spit out a good idea and then bankrolled it.
Yeah, because theoretically there is no creativity left. If it knows all and it truly does, then there's no new ideas. There's no creativity.
Right.
Everybody knows everything. So there's, in theory, no businesses. Because they would all have the same idea. They can't compete because they'd all have the same resources.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
So then, but nobody searches the Thunderhead?
Nobody searches it?
No.
What do you mean by nobody searches it?
So, before they become apprentices, because once they become apprentices, they can't use the Thunderhead. You can't use its AI algorithm. You know how, Google AI now suggests things to you?
Yeah.
Of it's oh, this is, a thing that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody... It does that, but nobody, searches for things that they're not thinking of.
Okay, so this computer is all-knowing, but it needs to be prompted.
Yes.
Okay, I guess that gives you a little bit more margin of error in that case.
So, if you were a doctor and you had an all-knowing computer and you were trying to cure HIV, you could just go to this computer and ask it to cure HIV, and it would tell you how to do that.
Okay.
Which is essentially what it's done.
But in this case, because it's a little bit more abstract, you would have to be hey, what's the next big tech that we're going to invent? And then they're oh, it's this.
Yeah, something like that. I don't really understand it.
Yeah, I give it a little bit more leeway because this still falls into that realm of it's abstract, it's different.
Yeah, it's not fully explained, and it's not really the focus of the novel.
That's fair. I guess the whole focus is on the Scythdom and this one society, so there's gonna be plot holes because they don't really explore it.
And the Scythdom doesn't interact with the Thunderhead the same way.
Yeah.
So the Thunderhead has its own AI sentience.
Okay.
And the Thunderhead is not allowed to use the AI.
You mean the Scythdom is
the
not allowed to
Scythdom is not allowed to use the Thunderhead's AI. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So they can't interact with it at all. So it's like being on old tech.
Yes. So they have access to all the data that the Thunderhead has put together. So Faraday can search using his very narrow set of parameters in the Thunderhead's data warehouse. Mm-hmm. But he can't go into the Thunderhead and type, I want a jock near me who is a quarterback of their school who drinks and has a license. The Thunderhead spits out an 8. He has to go in and go, okay, let me search these parameters.
Sorry, I was just thinking all of the hot singles in my area today.
Oh yeah, Scythes can't have kids either. Or families.
I guess, well, hold on. They can't produce their own family, is what you mean, right?
They can't marry or have children.
Okay. Because I was everybody has a family, technically.
Most of them give up their family when they become a Scythe. There's a thing, they just, most of them don't interact with their family anymore because you're so separated from the rest of people because you're the person killing people.
Mm-hmm.
And you see people, you know how like in a hospital you're like, you see people on their worst day ever?
Yeah.
For most people, that's to Scythe them. They see people on their worst day ever, and like nobody else can relate to them except other Scythes.
So they have to kind of distance themselves.
So they tend to distance themselves from their family. Yeah.
That's pretty classic.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Okay.
Nugget's like, where do I sit, Dad? What the fluff?
I think he just wants to be in the room with us.
I think so too. Anyway, so where was I?
You were talking about these two. They just basically got picked up by different
Scythes.
Scythes.
So Goddard and Curie. So Goddard, Curie and Faraday are part of the old guard who believes in empathy when you're killing. Mm-hmm. Goddard is part of what's called the new guard.
Mm-hmm.
And he believes, I think there's a quote in here that I underlined and I was like, this man is fluffing crazy.
He believes in killing for the fun.
Yes.
For the sport of it.
Yes. So
what
he essentially says, okay. He says, I'm not a man easily brought to fury, but how dare the old guard Scythes presume to dictate my behavior? Because he's the mass murderer.
Mm-hmm.
He's the king of mass deaths. He kills like entire airplanes full of people at once.
For fun?
For fun.
Okay, I guess because
to satisfy his quota, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, that just sounds kind of lazy in my opinion. It's like...
But he likes it. He likes causing fear. That's why he's a psychopath.
But that's what I mean is like... So if this was me and I was trying to do the least possible in my job, it would be like, all right, you have to call 400 people this year. And I go, does it matter when? And they go, no. And I was like, are there any parameters? And they go, no. And I go, okay, cool. I'll just do it all at once and then call it a year.
So he says, I am a man who chooses to glean with pride, not shame. I choose to embrace life even as I deal death. Mm-hmm. We Scythes are above the law because we deserve to be.
He's one of those people.
I see a day when new Scythes will be chosen not because of some esoteric moral high ground, but because they enjoy the taking of life.
Yes, so he's a psychopath.
After all, this is a perfect world. And in a perfect world, don't we all have the right to love what we do?
Uh-huh.
This is
Psycho.
insane. He's crazy. So he takes over Rowan's training. Mm-hmm. And this excerpt from his diary comes right before he takes over an executive's mansion. This is where like my whole thought process of, I don't understand how you can be an executive of a company and make all this money if you have access to the Thunderhead, which can give you any information and think of anything.
Everyone has access to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he essentially takes over this man's house and he makes the man who was the CEO of a company serve him as a servant. And he holds like massive kind of like orgy parties, but there's no sex because this is a YA novel.
Okay, so what kind of... Wouldn't that just be a party?
It's just like a massive party. Like Playboy Mansion style parties.
I see. Okay.
There's definitely people having sex in the back rooms.
Yeah, but they just don't talk about it.
They just don't talk about it because it's a YA novel.
Okay.
So he takes over, and then he takes over Rowan's training. Mm-hmm. His training method is crazy.
Okay.
He basically has Rowan where he teaches him every day. He goes out into the front lawn and he just slaughters anything out there. They start him off with like toys, like stuffed toys.
Okay.
And he goes after the front lawn. He's supposed to like either shoot them or slaughter them with a knife, like whatever. And then he graduates and he has to do humans.
Okay.
He practices on real humans.
Okay. And I mean, I'm sure this is going towards his quota.
No, they're not dead.
Wait, what?
They're not dead.
Oh, so he
kills them and then they get revived.
Okay.
You can be killed and then revived in this world. People jump off of buildings and then get revived.
So you can still die,
but then you get brought back to life.
And then be brought back to life. What kind of weird, like, immortality is this?
Like, the way you said it, it sounds like emo immortality.
It basically is. It's very, like, edgy. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a little weird.
Yep. That's why you can still age.
Yeah.
Because you're not technically truly immortal. Like, you just get revived kind of thing.
Interesting.
So that's how Rowan's training, like, begins. Is he starts to, like, become essentially a killing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And Citra's training, because she goes to Curie, who's part of the old guard, is a little different. She gets...
I would sure hope so.
She gets more training in, like, empathy and how to interact with the family. So the way that Curie kills is she looks for people that she says have given up.
Yeah.
So she looks for people who she can tell by something in their manner, by the set of their shoulders. Did he just meow at you?
Yeah, Nuggy. What's the matter?
He's like, where do I sit, Dad? Imagine you put him on top of this 4-foot thing of corduroy. I don't know if he's gonna like that.
He's definitely not.
Oh.
He's got a little face.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Nuggy.
look at his little face.
You never want attention from me, and now you want it? In the middle of a recording?
He always does this when we record. He always wants to be involved.
I know. I wonder if it's just because we're not doing anything else, so he thinks that we're, like, waiting for him.
We need to, like, have a little cat emoji or something. Like, we
for
need to add a
Nugget.
cat to our VR, like, avatars for Nugsy.
We might as well at this rate. But
Because he's always here.
yeah, kinda. I mean, I know I put him into our last video because I like put the pictures up of him.
Aww.
And so I had the one of him, like, sitting between us on the couch while we were recording.
He was so cute. Anyway,
We will resume.
so Citra is training. Curie feels that people who have lived for too long give up.
Yes.
And so she kills what she believes is the way that death used to come for people,
Yeah.
which was quickly and with no warning.
That makes sense.
And she looks for people that she believes have given up, and then she invites the family to her home afterwards to discuss, and she hands them a knife, and she goes, you can do to me what I did to your family. And they're
Oh,
like,
wow.
well, we can't attack a site. That's, like, against the rules. And she's like, I'm giving you permission. I will not be killed. I'll be
Yeah.
revived. But if you would like to exact revenge upon me, you may do so.
Yeah, so that they don't harbor that resentment.
Yeah. Most people don't choose to do it.
Yeah.
Most
well,
people,
because
when
they
given
don't
the
want to.
choice, they realize that, like, their family member didn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense to kind of give them that option.
Yeah.
Because then, like, it'll it'll help you let go.
Yeah. So around this point, Citra starts to feel like Faraday was not killed, like, did not kill himself, but was
Yes.
actually murdered
Yeah, by another Scythe.
by
It's
another Scythe, and she suspects it's Goddard.
Yeah.
Because Goddard is a
a
piece of shit.
psychopath. And so he's gonna keep going up on his totem pole, and the next thing up is a Scythe.
Yeah. So she starts to try and research and find a Scythe and find evidence of Faraday's death. So she wants to find out who the witnesses are. She
Like
wants to
how she
find
died.
all the video that she can of his day, the day before he dies, everything that she can. And so she starts researching that.
Yeah.
This is all in between their training. This is, like, kind of when you get more of that kind of philosophy and seeing, are people, humanity, inherently evil or inherently good? It's kind of like the two sides of the coin. Because Marie Curie is inherently a good person, and she wants to be a Scythe because she thinks that she needs to be. And she's been a Scythe for a very long time, so her philosophy has changed, and she looks back on her previous gleanings with kind of a sense of shame in
Yeah.
some ways. So she gleaned the final government.
Yes.
She killed everybody who was so cute in your arms. She killed everybody who was in the final government. And so that brought her a lot of fame. She did that when she was young, and she didn't think we needed a government anymore, so she didn't know why we still had one.
Yeah.
Now she's older, and she feels, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I should have let them live.
You have guilt.
Yeah. So she has a lot of shame and guilt around those things. But she's basically like, it's done.
What can I do
what
to
can I do
change
now
the world?
except change the way that I approach my killings in the future? So she starts to train Citra, and Citra has taken on this kind of idea, and she is encouraged by Curie that she shouldn't kill the same way Curie does.
She should figure out her own.
She should figure out her own way, but she needs to maintain that sense of empathy and that sense of moral high ground. Not
Yeah.
moral high ground, but, like, morality
Yeah.
to guide her choices.
Yeah, it's basically having a conscience.
Yeah.
You can't just shut it off or else
Yeah.
you're a psychopath.
Yeah. So there are 3 yearly I don't know why there aren't 4, but there are 3 yearly conferences of Scythe.
Who uses trimesters for anything?
It's also very confused because there's a winter conference, there's a vernal conference, which is spring,
Yep.
and then there's a fall conference.
So no summer conference?
I guess
feel
we're just like,
summer conference is always a
fuck
thing.
summer.
I guess so.
we're all off for summer. We're okay. Maybe that's why this is a YA novel, is because they're like, summer doesn't exist.
I guess.
He's like, Dad.
Oh, it's okay. Then.
So cute. Anyway, so when the spring conference is the first one where Citra and Rowan were pitted against each other. They have 3 tests that they have to do, 1 at each conference, before they make their final, and that's when they become Scythe.
Yes.
Okay? So
do they get their Scythe when they go to the following spring conference?
yeah, a year.
Because it's a full
It's a
year,
full
right?
year.
Okay.
So then the fall conference comes up, and they go to the conference. They're pitted against each other. I think it's like a fight. They have to like actively fight each other in the ring.
Interesting.
All the apprentices, and like whoever wins, and
Do
whoever
they do
loses.
it like Hunger Games style?
Yeah, well, they technically have to kill each other.
And then what do they win for winning?
They just don't get dismissed from their apprenticeship.
Okay. Just depending on how well they do.
Yeah.
What? That's crazy though, because like.
So you get 2. You can pass 2 of your tests and fail 1 of them before your year-end apprenticeship. If you pass 2, you can go to the year-end. If you fail 2, then you lose. So Citra fails her first test, and somehow I think she passes her second one. I don't know how though.
So they give you a 2 out of 3.
Yeah. So
Okay.
she and Rowan are pitted against each other in the fight.
Yep.
Obviously, Rowan has been training to be a killing machine, and so he's trying to throw the fight for Citra. Oh, Nike's done now. Hi, baby.
Okay.
Hi,
Bye,
baby.
Nugget.
You know you can just sit in the cubby.
Nope.
No.
Doesn't want.
No.
It's been there forever. He won't take it.
Oh my God, he's. Oh,
He investigates and then he leaves.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Rowan's trying to throw the fight. Citra gets mad that he's trying to throw the fight because she's like, "Do you think that I can't handle you? Like, I can totally beat you."
Oh, the hormones of a teenager.
So she essentially makes it look like he's winning.
Okay.
It makes sense. It's really weird.
Why does she do that? What does this give her?
I don't know. She wants him to look good because
Okay.
she wants him to glean her. She thinks that he should survive instead of her.
Okay.
So she...
But she could just fail and then go back to her regular fucking life.
No, if she fails, she gets killed. Regardless. If she fails out of the apprenticeship, she gets killed.
What?
Yeah.
I thought we already said that wasn't gonna happen.
No, for
That's
these 2, they get killed.
only for these 2?
Yeah.
That's kind of hogwash.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Sucks to be them.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
So she tries to throw the fight, and then Rowan breaks her neck.
Oh, alright, well.
But I guess like somehow it's considered it's an illegal throw or something like that. So she
Oh my god, did they
wins.
Karate Kid
I
this?
think they Karate Kidded. I don't remember honestly.
It's an illegal kick, you can't do that.
Yeah, they do something like that where they throw it and
And it turns out that it's not legal, so then they bring her back.
Yeah.
And they're like, you have to go for your 3rd test.
yeah. So
Okay.
that's just like the way it is.
Alright.
And then Citra ends up telling Curie that she believes that Goddard killed Faraday.
Yep.
She also tells Rowan this before the conference. So this is the first time they've seen each other in like 5 months? Ish? Fall conference? 5 months?
Yeah, a few months.
Or 2 or 3 months because they went to the conference and then they came back and then they got separated. So maybe like 3 to 4 months, right?
Yeah.
So she tells Rowan that she suspects that Goddard killed Faraday.
Okay.
Rowan then, when they go home,
No.
asks Goddard what
If he
happened
did.
to Faraday.
Okay.
He doesn't ask him if he did it, but he asks him what happened to Faraday.
Yeah.
And Goddard, obviously, because he's not stupid,
Lies.
A, lies, but B, tells figures out that Rowan thought this because of Citra.
Yeah.
So he goes after Citra.
Yeah, because it's immediately after his fight with him.
Yeah. So he knows. He's not stupid.
Yeah.
Not like this child.
Apparently. Okay.
So he goes after Citra. He essentially puts together this case that Citra is actually the person who killed Faraday.
Oh, okay.
So he says...
he's looking to frame her.
Yeah, he frames Citra. There's a letter written in Faraday's hand in his journal that's basically talking about how she would come to his room at night and stand outside the door, and how he was scared that she was going to kill him. That he had made a mistake on choosing who he did. She gets brought to the high Scythe. He presents her with this letter, and he presents her with the evidence that she had already gathered. So she gathered evidence that there were witnesses to Faraday's death who had then been granted immortality with Faraday's own ring.
Yeah.
So she's like, that's super weird. I want to talk to the witnesses.
Yeah.
So she tries to present this to Curie, but Curie can't do anything. And then she immediately gets called into the high Scythe's office, essentially, to discuss this
weird diary entry.
Yeah. So he accuses her of killing Faraday, and she's like, that's not true. Like, I never did this, but it's Faraday's ring, or it's Faraday's handwriting. They don't know where Faraday's ring is, and she has proof. They can find her searching the Thunderhead, because the Thunderhead records data requests.
Yeah.
They can find proof that she requested this data about Faraday's last day. So they're like, you're trying to erase
what was happening
that last day.
Uh-huh.
And so they're talking to her. This is one of the funny things in this novel, because there are things that, like, don't make sense for, like, old phrasing, like phrasing that we don't know anymore, because, like, in this novel it's in the future, and they haven't used certain words. Like, I think you remember me telling you about some of these.
You were saying, like, their sayings are all slightly off of what we currently say.
There was, like, one that I remember. It was like, it was something about, like, jumping a person or something like that.
Oh.
Or being made or something. And I was like, that's not how that term is used. And I was so confused. And then I realized it's because it's supposed to be in the future. And it's not used anymore.
Yeah, they were talking about beating somebody up.
Yeah.
And they said they kept, like, jumping up them or something like that.
Making them or something like that. And I was like, that's not how that phrase is. This is one of those instances where I forgot, the head scythe of the area is called the High Blade.
Okay. Just gonna let it happen.
His name is Xenocrates?
Okay.
Some Greek philosopher, I don't remember.
There's a lot of them.
And he said, I've been studying things from the age of mortality. It's a number of procedures designed to uncover truths. I believe it is pronounced torture.
What?
It's torture.
What?
I believe it's pronounced torture. It would involve turning off your pain and then pain nanites, because they have nanites in their blood that release drugs.
Okay.
But they can connect to the Thunderhead. I don't know. Then inflicting high levels of physical suffering until you finally confess the truth of what you've done. To which I put in a comment here, and I said, did you also read the studies that show that it's not effective?
Yeah, that they'll tell you they started the Chicago fire if you torture them enough. They'll literally tell you anything just to make it end.
And then later it says, like, he gives her a piece of paper and he's like, sign the confession and then we won't have to do that. And she goes, why should I have to sign anything? I've already been tried. And what's the word? Convicted? Because they don't.
Whoops. Sorry, I just think I knocked my controller over.
Where did that come from?
My board.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll pick it up later.
Okay. Anyway, so that's what happens. And so to escape what she feels is going to be certain death, because it's a death sentence to kill a Scythe. And there's evidence against her, and nobody is refuting the evidence.
Does she run?
She runs. Scythe, the High Blade's office is like his house. It's a log cabin, like an old style log cabin that he had moved to This is basically like Kansas City or Missouri. Like that's the city that it is. It's got that, the arch. Is it St. Louis that has the arch?
You're asking the wrong person.
I really
This
am.
is geography. I don't know.
Anyway,
anything.
there's like a huge arch in this city,
Okay.
and that's they've renamed it to Fulcrum City. He's moved his log cabin to the top of the highest tower in this city.
On top of the tower?
And rebuilt it as a log cabin.
Why?
So that he could have unobstructed views across the city. And then he has a lawn on the roof.
Interesting.
With no handrails, because if you fall off the roof, you can just be revived.
So there's no reason for safety measures.
Yes.
So does she jump from this
She
roof?
jumps off of the roof.
Okay.
And because she is now dead and being revived, she is property of the Thunderhead. Because the Thunderhead takes care of all revivifications?
Okay.
Revivings?
So it's like when they fight. Yeah, I think revivification is a real word, maybe.
Revivify. I know that's
You could
a
just
spell.
say revival.
That's true. I could have said that. I didn't
Okay.
think of that word. Revivify is a word. It's a spell, I think. I think it's a spell in D&D.
I don't know.
I'm giving you things to look up.
Why? Why do you make more work for me? I already clip so much from like Google.
Anyway. So she's property of the Thunderhead when she gets revived. The Thunderhead moves her from this area in North America down to, I want to say, Argentina.
How does the Thunderhead move her?
Flies her in a med
But she's
plane.
dead.
She's a med plane.
How did she get picked? Did they like?
They scraped her off the sidewalk.
Yeah,
she
that's
fell
what I'm
like
asking.
30 stories.
Yeah, did they peel her off with like those giant roadkill like pizza
I
peels?
think so.
And then they like there's like a claw that comes down and they play the claw game and pick her up in like the med flight and then med flight her somewhere.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe she's in like a private plane with like, the bed and the monitors and everything.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Nugget's mad.
He's mad that he can't spend time. I think he wanted to be on the couch.
Oh my god. He's such a baby.
A fluffy, fluffy baby.
Alright.
Anyway, so they revivify her and she goes back home. Or she goes to like Argentina. And she's healing and she hears this voice. This voice says, Citra Terranova, can you hear me? And she thinks, is someone there? Who is that? I've known you since before you knew yourself. I've advised you when no one else could. I've concerned myself with your well-being. I've helped you choose gifts for your family. I revived you when your neck was broken. And I am in the midst of reviving you now. She's talking directly.
It's Jiminy Cricket. It's Jiminy Cricket. I knew it. It's her conscience.
She's talking to the Thunderhead.
Okay.
She says, wait, I'm seeing something. A towering, sparkling storm cloud. Is that what you truly are? Merely the form humanity imagined for me. I would have preferred something a bit less intimidating. I just want to point out, she's still dead at this point. She's not alive. She has nanites in her blood that release drugs.
But you can't directly connect to the Thunderhead?
I don't know how it's talking to her.
Yeah, there's... What?
I don't know how it's talking to her.
I think it's meant to be supernatural, but it's a sci-fi novel, so that's a little weird.
I don't know how it's talking. I think it's supposed to, like, you're just supposed to assume that the Thunderhead can project its consciousness onto other people. I don't understand.
Okay, because magic.
Magic. Anyway, so she wakes up. She's in, like, Argentina or something like that. She's pronounced alive. She's found by Curie. Curie knows that this is a lie. So she steals Citra from the revival center in Argentina and takes her home to another Scythe's house.
What was the point of taking her to Argentina?
To get her as far away from the Mid-America Scythe as possible.
As far away as Argentina?
But she can still make it back to Mid-America without having to fly.
What? Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It says, you're on the southernmost tip of the Chile, Argentina region. Chile, Argentina.
Chile, Argentina. It just sounds like Argentina got really cool about stuff.
Apparently, the Scythes in this area do not like the Mid-America Scythes very much.
Okay.
do not like the government of America Scythe. So
That makes
that's why
sense.
they moved her here specifically. They thought that they would help them.
They don't like the government? There is no government.
The Scythes have like their own governing bodies.
Okay.
So Curie explains, actually, that the excerpt from Faraday's journal about how he was scared that there was a woman outside of his room and he was worried that he had made the wrong choice and that she might actually kill him and blah blah
Yep.
blah, that was actually about Curie.
What?
Curie was Faraday's first apprentice,
Oh.
and as a 20-year-old young woman, when he was probably had reset himself to like 30 or something like that,
Yeah.
learning underneath him, she fell in love with him.
Okay.
And she would linger outside of his bedroom because
Because
she
she-
wanted him to open the door and invite her inside.
Oh.
So she said, he wasn't talking about you, he wrote that about me. When he was still a junior Scythe at 22, he took me on as an apprentice at 17. And she felt that she was in love with him.
Okay.
And she lost herself in the desire. He did not feel that way. He was also young, so he didn't understand what she was thinking.
So he was just scared because he thought that she was going to murder him.
Yeah.
But, so this is my thing. Like, they put this in the data, in like the diary, right? Don't you date a diary?
Apparently not. Apparently not this one.
What kind of bullshit diary is this?
Well, Xenocrats actually knows that this diary entry isn't real. He knows that this is wrong. He was
Okay.
given it by Goddard, who also knows that this is not real.
Yeah. So
Because
they just
Goddard-
accepted it and said that it was proven?
Xenocrats has an illegal child
Oh. And so Goddard knows about it.
that Goddard is keeping at his estate.
Oh, okay.
So Xenocrats does whatever Goddard wants him to because he believes that Goddard could kill his daughter at any time.
Yeah. And I mean, technically you could because he's not supposed to have this daughter.
Yeah. So he does whatever Goddard wants because of that. So essentially, Curie explains that at the time she had an infatuation he didn't understand. Faraday, she eventually graduated, and like 50 years after that, when they had both reset several times, they became lovers.
Okay.
She and Faraday.
Yeah.
And then he tore out the page once he realized she had like revealed like that actually that's what she was doing because he had asked her about it.
Uh-huh.
And he tore out the page and like I guess kept it somewhere.
Oh, so it was not in the diary.
It was just a
It
floating
was just
page.
a floating page sitting around somewhere,
Yeah, but I mean a lot of people still date their diary entries on the page.
which is strange.
Anyway. So Curie gives her the way out. She gives her an option to leave. Citra escapes and ends up going to the name that the Thunderhead gave her when she asked the Thunderhead who killed Faraday.
Yeah.
So she goes up to the north part of South America.
Uh-huh.
So in that like
Yeah.
part.
The tip.
Yep. No, not the tip.
What?
You know how it's like a triangle?
Yeah.
The top of the triangle.
Isn't that a... Oh, it's like
It's like this.
it's like an upside down pyramid.
Yeah.
Triangle.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. I
Yeah.
got you.
Where the Gulf of Mexico is.
Yes.
Yeah. So she goes up there and she knocks on the door of somebody who's living off grid. Do you know who that person is?
It's No, it's not Goddard.
No. It's Faraday.
What?
It's Faraday.
Oh.
He's
so
alive.
He just lied.
He's alive. He wanted to give up being a Scythe, but he didn't want to die.
Okay, so he lied about that.
So he lied about dying. Here's what I don't understand. Faraday's death, when he died, quote unquote, he was supposed to have jumped in front of a train.
Yeah.
Where was the body?
Where was the train?
There was a train.
Okay.
He paid off. He walked into the train station. The
Okay, so he actually dies, and then somebody revived him in secret.
so Curie helps revive him in secret. Why though? Okay, if you die, you have a funeral. There's still funerals in this world.
Yep.
Like Faraday goes to all the funerals of his victims, which
Yeah.
seems a little weird, but sure, he thinks it's showing respect. I think maybe the family doesn't feel that way.
I don't know. Usually you don't have the murderer at the funeral. Who does?
So he goes to the funeral, but like there are funerals, so there are bodies. If you get hit by a train, there's still something left.
Yeah, but they don't tend to have open caskets,
I guess
so you could just have nothing in there.
that's fair.
Because, like, if you think about it, if it's gruesome enough in general, like being hit by a train or a bus or a plane.
So my thought was just that he paid off by giving immunity to the witnesses
Yeah.
to be like, hey, like, you know, I'm I'm gonna say I jumped in front of the train, just tell everybody that I did.
Yeah.
So I thought that he had just paid them off. I didn't think he actually jumped in front of the train.
I feel like it makes sense in this world to do that. Because if you can just be revived, the whole point is that you want to get yourself killed and then get revived in secret. And then live your life out. Because then nobody will question if you actually died.
Yeah.
That's like the most surefire way to get away with it.
I guess that's fair. I kind of thought that he... I just thought that he was gonna not... I thought he wasn't gonna kill... I just thought that...
Why wouldn't he, though?
I guess that's fair. Because why would you go through all that pain?
Because you want to get away with it.
I guess... So,
You
like,
wanna
your theory is that, like, because Curie helps him
Yep.
get...
She's in love with him.
Yep. Like, leave the Scyth then.
Yep.
So your theory is that he throws himself in front of the train, Curie handles his quote-unquote funeral,
Yep.
and then transports his casketed body / the reviving body
Yep.
to South America, where the Scythedom governing body is not as strong.
Because they don't agree with the current one.
Yeah, so there's a whole thing they talk about where in the Amazon rainforest there is a Scythedom there. Scythes from Mid-America, from the Americas, would travel there to kill indiscriminately.
Uh-huh.
And the Amazonians did not like that because the
Yeah.
governing body like allowed that to happen. So now they actively work against the Mid-Americas
That makes sense,
governing
though.
body. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's like why she goes there specifically, and that's why he's living there. Is the Scythes all know that he's there?
Okay.
So Citra finds him,
Yep.
and she's like, "What the fuck? You're alive!"
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really good twist, honestly.
Yeah.
I
That's
was
kinda
not
nice.
expecting him to be alive.
The way you were describing it in the summary, I wouldn't have expected it either.
Yeah.
Because it was playing kind of like a murder mystery.
I thought it was a murder.
And then maybe there was a murder. It's just, usually the person who can be murdered doesn't get revived.
Right.
So that's a pretty good one.
Right. So Citra finds Faraday, and she starts to retrain with him because he's there, and he's like, "I'm going to continue your training," and she's on the run.
Weird. Okay.
Curie goes back to Mid-America and basically confesses the whole story and gets her allies, who are still in power in the Scythedom, to absolve Citra of any wrongdoing. They're like, yes, we believe Curie. Like, obviously that's about her.
Yeah.
If she says it's true, then it's true.
Yes.
So Citra is no longer a fugitive
Okay.
anymore.
That makes it easier.
Yep. Rowan has been training with Goddard
Yep.
this whole time,
Yep.
and he's become essentially a killing machine.
Uh-huh. It's like making a childhood soldier.
Yep.
Yep.
Goddard has several acolytes that are part of his immediate group.
Okay.
So he is one of them, and then there are 3 others. And one of them is named Volta. And Rowan and Volta find out that the other do not believe in Goddard's philosophy.
Oh.
So Volta also feels guilty about killing multiple people. But he doesn't think he can change anything. So he just goes along with Goddard. He's like, it's better to be in power than to be out on the outs with Goddard
And not have anything.
and not have anything. So Goddard decides right before their final there was another conference in between this. I don't really remember what happened there. It's not that important. But right before their final conference, Goddard decides to take them on another big mass murder. And this mass murder is going to be towards a cult.
Okay.
So there's no more religion anymore in this world, basically, because why pray to a higher power to save you from hell or death or anything?
Yeah, well, when
When-
people die, and they probably reported that they don't see anything anymore.
Yeah. So why pray to a higher power anymore?
Yeah.
So there's no religion really. There's what they call them the Tonists. They're people who believe that the world operates at a frequency,
Interesting.
and they're trying to reach that frequency,
Okay.
to reach enlightenment.
Okay.
So they have like a giant tuning fork, and they take some. It's not they are considered a cult, and they're not treated very well in the novel.
Yeah.
They're not like really empathized with in the novel at all. They're like, oh, these people are stupid. They're taking stuff from religion of the old world and just making it into this Tonist cult and whatever. So they go after these Tonists. They go after the cult.
I kind of like this cult. It sounds cool.
It's kind of cool.
It sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
That I could understand.
So they have like a giant tuning fork, and they hit it, and it like vibrates. And you know, like if you ever hear like a really good bass note that vibrates in you,
Yeah.
or like especially a tuning fork, because tuning forks have such a specific frequency.
They're just looking for it to like resonate.
It resonates inside of their chest, and they're like, oh my god, this is the higher power.
Yeah.
So they try to like actually kill themselves for real, but they don't succeed.
I mean, I could definitely see how this cult would come about.
Yeah.
Because everything has a natural, I guess, frequency,
Yeah.
noise, sound.
I thought that the cult made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
They have like, if you know, in Roman Catholic churches, they have like a thing where you reach in that's holy water, and you're supposed to
Yeah.
you're supposed to cross yourself with holy water to cleanse yourself when you go in. They have kind of that, but it's a basin of water full of all the old world's diseases.
Oh.
And they're like, because we have reached this place of enlightenment, and because we're in this world, we can actually douse ourselves in these diseases, and we're okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And so, like, I actually kind of like this cult. I wish that it was explored a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
But essentially, Goddard and his group go to the Tonus cult.
Yep.
And Rowan is instructed that he will be able to kill one person at this cult. He's an apprentice. He's not supposed to kill anybody, but Goddard is going to give him, like,
The ability
to
I
kill
guess.
someone on his behalf.
Yes.
And he tells Rowan, he's like, you're instructed to stay at the entrance of the cult compound,
Yep.
or the Tonus compound, and keep anybody from escaping so that everybody is killed.
Yeah.
He actually facilitates people escaping. He leaves the entrance so that people can get out. And he finds Volta, who is the person who is
Yep, that
empathetic
he
to
was
him.
talking to.
He finds Volta in the compound, and Volta is crying because he said he entered a room and he found a group of children
Yep.
being educated who were screaming and scared.
Uh-huh.
And Rowan is like, well, did you let them go? And Volta says, no, I killed every single one of them.
Aw.
At which point Volta then kills himself.
Oh.
He slits his wrists. He's like, I can't do it anymore. You're stronger than me. Please stop him.
So are these acolytes also Scythes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're all part of the Scythdom. They
Yeah.
all believe, what Goddard believes is that killing is for fun.
Yeah.
But except for Volta, he doesn't actually believe that. He just
Yeah.
pretends so that
Because
he
he
can...
wanted the power.
Yeah. So it's very sad. He says, like, he basically turns to Rowan after he's done this. He's having this crisis, and he goes, what are we? It can't be what we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, this type of person is not who we are supposed to be.
Yeah, so he has that internal crisis
Yeah.
where he realizes what they're doing is wrong.
So Rowan says to him, it's not what we're supposed to be. It never was. Goddard isn't a Scythe. He may have the ring, he may have a license to glean, but he's not a Scythe. He's a killer, and he has to be stopped.
Yeah.
We can find a way to stop him, the both of us. And Volta shakes his head. He says, it's over. I'm glad. And it turns out that he's cut his wrists at this point.
So, what I don't understand is, because Goddard has this apprentice, right? And Rowan is going to succeed him. Doesn't that mean Goddard has to be killed?
No, you don't have to be killed to like have your apprentice become a Scythe.
I thought that's what we said, is that they replaced them because there's
No.
a finite amount.
I said some Scythes train an apprentice when they're ready to leave the Scythdom and like die.
Yeah.
Some Scythes train apprentice when they want the Scythdom to grow and expand with their ideals.
Okay. So then my question was, because you said there was a finite amount, and I go, okay, so in my mind that means he's going to succeed him, and then that way Goddard will kill himself. I guess in this book I realized because Faraday is gone, they were competing for Faraday's spot.
Yeah.
But then what's to stop them from...
The governing body can increase the amount of number of Scythes that they can have.
Yeah, because
within the area.
It's kind of like you have too many people in your group then.
Yeah, so they can increase the amount of the group.
Okay.
So then Rowan, in anger, sort of, he's become what Goddard wants him to be.
Yeah.
He fights Goddard.
Oh.
He actually approaches Goddard in the sanctuary. Goddard has somebody, I think it's the leader of the religion or whatever. And he's like, I have your last kill here. This is the person that you're going to kill to graduate from my apprenticeship to go on to get your ring. And Rowan approaches Goddard and he's like, I will kill somebody today. And he kills Goddard.
Oh, he does kill him.
He kills Goddard. He takes his ring. He takes his robe. And then he burns the entire place down. Because fire is the only thing that we've established that you cannot come back from.
Oh, so if you completely torch the body, you cannot revive them.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That's pretty smart.
Yeah. So they actually they foreshadowed this quite early on.
Yeah.
They kind of just sparingly mentioned it though, and it wasn't in relation to anything else. So I felt like it was a really good foreshadowing to now of like,
but
fire.
It feels weird at the time.
It felt weird at the time. It was like, okay, yeah, like we're learning about things that can kill you, and like how the Thunderhead works, and like the Thunderhead can only not control like weather and fire, and those are the only two things it really can't do anything about.
Yeah. Okay.
So those were the two, and so he kills everybody, and he walks out. He wears Faraday's robe, or not Faraday, Goddard's robe when he walks out.
Yeah.
And he talks to the police, and they're like, what are we gonna do? Like, we have to like hose down the building. And he goes, no, this is Scythe business. You have to let the building burn.
Oh, okay. So he stops them. Very smart.
Yeah, so that nobody
can go in. Recover the body.
Yeah. Until it's been burned to a crisp and they can't identify anything.
Yeah.
So they identify based off of who they believe was there.
So what does he tell the police then? That he's like, oh yeah, my master.
No, he wears the robe. They think he's a Scythe.
Oh. No, okay, that makes sense, because the police don't know who he is.
They don't know who he is now.
Okay.
So the only thing that happens is Xenocrats, the High Blade, asks him at the final conclave, final conference, and says, we found 3 of his companions. All 3 of them wear robes that have little jewels sewn onto them.
Yeah.
So they're very well known.
Yeah.
And it's very well known that Goddard's robe is blue with diamonds sewn onto it.
Yeah.
And they say, we found the other 3 with the jewels around them, and that's how we identified them. But who we believe is Goddard, first of all, his head is like 2 feet away from his body, which it shouldn't be if he died in the fire.
Yeah.
And second of all, there's no jewels around him.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't know. Maybe he took it off because of some other reason.
Yeah.
He just kind of plays it off.
Yeah, he probably didn't think of anything fast enough, which I can understand.
I think he just knows that he's going to fail the final tests.
Uh-huh.
He's like planning to throw it anyway, and he's just like, I don't care.
Okay.
You can do whatever you want to me.
Yeah.
So then the final test comes.
Mm-hmm.
The final test before you can become a Scythe is a big secret. Like, nobody tells you what it is.
Yeah.
You go into it, and you have no idea.
Yeah.
So Citra walks into the room. She's the last one of the group of batches of apprentices going. And she walks into the room, and there's they call them the Bejeweling Committee. They're the people who give out the rings.
Okay.
Who decide if you're okay to be a Scythe.
Yep.
And then there's her little brother.
Oh no.
And the Bejeweling Committee says you have to kill him.
Yep.
And she goes, why would I kill him?
Yeah.
And they say it's not an official kill because you're not a Scythe yet.
Yeah.
So he'll be revived, but you have to kill him.
Yeah. And so it's more of a mental test.
It's a mental test. So she kills her brother. She kills him with a lot of compassion.
Yeah.
She picks up, I think, like a knife or something.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a Bowie knife that she picks up. Yeah.
Ooh.
And she approaches her little brother, and he's like crying, and he's like, is it gonna hurt? And she's like, yes, it will, but you'll be revived. And she's like, what color do you want my robes to be when I become a Scythe? And he tells her he wants them to be turquoise, and she says, that's the color I'll choose then. Okay. And she holds him, and then she kills him. Yeah. And so the Bejeweling Committee kind of debates a little bit, where they're like, oh, she took too long to do it, and one of them was like, no, she was showing him compassion, she was assuring him.
Yeah.
Like, that's important. So she ends up becoming a Scythe.
Yep. So she
and
passes.
Rowan does not. Rowan is presented with the same thing, and he just
He can't do it.
She asks what happened to Rowan when he was brought into the room.
Yeah.
And her master, Scythe Curie, looks at her and she says he drew the pistol as his weapon. And she asks, like, what happened then? Tell me what happened. And Curie says he pulled the trigger before they finished reading the instructions.
Oh.
He was pissed.
Yeah.
He was like, I am done with this bullshit.
I would too.
So then there's the bejeweling day. She gets her thing, and she's supposed to kill Rowan.
Uh-huh.
So she's like, okay, I'm going to... She picks up the same kind of knife, the Bowie knife.
Yep.
And she approaches him. And then, you remember back when they were fighting in the second conclave?
Yep.
And he broke her neck?
Yeah.
He killed her with a move. She says, this is for breaking my neck. And she punches him in the face.
Uh-huh.
She punches him in the face with her ring.
Yep.
Which gets DNA on it. So this is an important part of the Scythe that I forgot to mention. Scythes wear rings.
That identify people.
That identify people with their DNA and transmit it to the Scythedom's database, which is separate from the Thunderhead. And if somebody's DNA gets on the ring, if somebody kisses the ring, they're granted immunity for a year.
Oh. Okay.
So, like, people who are chosen to become Scythes or people whose family member is killed, they're granted immunity for the year.
Yeah.
So you can't cite them. So they put them into the database by having them kiss the ring.
Oh.
It's very formal and all that kind of jazz. So she
she
punches him in the
hits him.
face with her ring, and she cuts his face.
Yep.
She cuts his lip with her ring when she punches him.
Yeah.
Which now means he has immunity.
Yeah.
So he gets to walk away.
Okay.
So he walks away from the Scythedom, and Citra becomes a Scythe. And she says basically there's like she chooses her name, and there's like a little excerpt from her journal at the end. There's excerpts from each, like, different journals throughout the whole thing. And she says there's always an exception to being a Scythe. She can see that Scythedom is in danger of becoming the exception of goodwill. So she sees that the Scythedom is starting to become the exception. Like, morality is normal, but there's an exception to that rule.
Yeah.
And she says that she's going to try and, work on that. And she's going to be part of the group that's trying to keep the Scythedom from being Goddard's group.
Yeah, from just being psychopaths murdering people.
Yep.
Okay.
So she says there's a new rumor. The latest rumor, which in the months since I was ordained has spread beyond the Scythedom and is whispered among the general populace. According to the rumor, there's someone out there who is seeking out corrupt, despicable Scythes and ending their existence by fire.
Oh.
One thing is certain, he's not an ordained Scythe, and yet people here have started to call him Scythe Lucifer.
Oh. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's pretty heavily implied that it's Rowan.
Yeah, and I like that ending.
Yeah. So she basically says, if Scythe Lucifer ever comes my way, I hope he'll see me as one of the good ones, the way that he once did.
Oh.
And so that's the end of the novel. There's a second novel in the series.
Really?
Which I think this focused a lot on establishing the Scythedom, establishing that it was corrupt, and that something needed to be changed. And the second novel is called Thunderhead.
Okay, so I wonder if it dives more into just the overall world.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it dives into that the Thunderhead isn't perfect.
Yeah.
That stuff is happening that the Thunderhead can't control.
I'm sure they'll explain a little bit more, because this one was like, the Thunderhead is just part of the world.
Yeah.
It's not really that important to her or to the main characters.
Right.
And so all of it takes place in the Scythedom.
Yeah.
So I wonder if the second book will explore just for regular people.
Yeah.
Like what it's like interacting with the Thunderhead. What's the problem?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the second book will kind of look into it more.
Is it already out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This book is really old. It's from 2016.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
So I'm kind of hopeful that it will look into it more, because I still, through the first 20% of this book, I was like, I don't understand this society. How is this a utopia?
Yeah.
People are still working. There are still jobs. still inventing things, but they're not inventing things because they can just go to the Thunderhead and find the research for them. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so I feel like you could argue that it's setting up for the second book because it poses all of these questions and then doesn't really relate to them with the main story.
Right.
The main story is great, and I enjoyed the summary that you gave of it.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, and I like the twists and the turns, but like, I mean, it kind of frustrates me that they didn't explain a whole lot about the world itself.
Yeah. I kind of got frustrated that I thought that the plot of this book was really good. I thought the world building was a little lackluster. They definitely talked about, and I think it really came up when Curie came into the picture a little bit more, of the fact that like people kind of they just kind of operate. They don't have anything to work for.
Yeah, and that's kind of like one of the big, I guess, theories or principles of immortality.
Yeah.
So when you become immortal, they're like, well, you have nothing to work for. You don't want to eat.
Yeah.
You don't have to sleep. You can't die from disease.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of doing anything?
Right. So I think that, like, especially with Curie, who killed based off of, like, she thought people had given up, that the idea of the fact that it's not a perfect society really became clear. And I thought that was well done, but I just still have a lot of questions about the Thunderhead and whether it's truly good or not.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sure they'll explore it more in the second book because
Hopefully.
that's the title.
It's called the Thunderhead. It should
So
be
it has
explored
to.
more.
Alright, what would you give this book out of 5 stars?
Can I tell you about my rating system?
Okay, yeah.
I stole it from another YouTuber.
That's fine.
I stole it from a YouTuber called Aaron Smith, and it's called the Peach rating system.
Okay.
So each letter stands for a part of the book.
You said it's peach as in like the fruit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Peach.
Okay.
So P is for plot.
Yep. And do you rate it out of 5 or 10?
You get rated out of 5. So you do P for plot, E for enjoyment.
Okay, that's fair.
A for artistry. C for character. So either the character development or the character in general.
Okay.
And then H for heart. So that's like just like the X factor of the novel.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought that this had a really good plot. So I gave it 4 out of 5 for plot. I had a good time, so I gave it 4 out of 5 for enjoyment. I didn't give it a 5 out of 5 because, like, the first 20%, like I said, and still throughout the novel, I had questions about, like, the society.
Yeah, they posed a lot more questions going into the society than they answered.
Yeah. I gave it, like, a 2 for artistry because it's not artistic. It's not pretty prose. There's, like, a couple of moments of, like, really interesting wording that I'm like, wow, like, that's like mind-blowing.
Oh, so that's what you mean by artistry.
Yeah, I mean prose.
Okay.
For me, it's like mainly prose-based.
Gotcha.
Character, I gave like a 2. I didn't think the characters really developed that much.
Yeah, it sounded like most of the enjoyment from this book came from what the characters were doing, not so much that the characters drove it themselves.
Yeah, they didn't like change a ton. They were who they were throughout.
Yeah.
They just became more of who they were. It's kind of, that's why it's a YA novel, I think. It's kids like who are who they are, but discovering why they are who they are.
Exactly. You're discovering, you're not developing.
Right. And then for heart, I gave it a 3. I thought it was pretty good.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So what was your overall rating?
So overall, so then you add those together and then you divide it by 5. My overall rating was a 3 out of 5.
Okay. That's pretty fair.
I thought it was pretty good.
I feel like from the way that you described it, it sounds like it was a 3 or 4 out of 5 kind of book.
Yeah.
But I know there's a couple of other books that you really enjoy that still sit at 4.
Yeah.
So I think that's fair.
Yeah. I think this book, especially like if I kept saying this when I was reading it, if I had read this as a teen, I would not have focused on the issues with the world as much.
Yeah.
As an adult reading this, especially an adult who works for a living, who
society.
has to deal in a society, in a city, and especially in the world that we are now.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people have jobs in this. I don't understand why people go to college in this.
Yeah, I feel like as a teenager, you accept a lot more.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, well, that's just how it is. They just have magic.
Yeah, they're like, oh, like, yeah, everybody just continue to have jobs because that's what we have now. So, like, as an adult, I'm like, I don't understand why people aren't pursuing art. I don't understand why people are, like why do they have jobs? Why do
Is
they?
it solely from the main character's perspective?
It's solely from the two main characters, so Rowan and Citra.
Okay, 'cause-
pair off, but there are excerpts from Scythe's like
Okay.
journals. So that's how like I know what Goddard was thinking. Is
Yeah.
there are excerpts from his journal? There's excerpts mainly from Curie's journal. She's the main one that you see.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is interesting because I thought it was interesting that from the beginning Curie was the main journal that you saw, not Faraday.
Okay. Yeah, because, like, when I think about it, I can understand omitting a lot of these details because as a teenager, I don't understand how society works.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have thought of, well, if you don't have any needs, what can you do with all your time?
Right.
Like, you're supposed to work, and that's just the way it goes.
Right. Like as a teen, I think also like as a teen, you go to school and then you don't have really anything that you other than school and
You
homework.
have no obligations.
You have no obligations outside of that. So like you don't think, oh, people spend like 8 hours a day at their job. If they could spend like 6 hours a day at their job and then do like something else out of the rest of their day, more people would choose to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that like the thought is that society would kind of continue as it is now. It's just that everybody would be provided for.
Yeah, and I can understand that. Like, there's a lot of people who live to work.
Yeah.
And that's really what they look forward to, is because they
Right.
love their job and they love what they do.
Right.
And then there's other people who,
Work to live.
yeah, exactly.
But
And
in
that's-
this society, everyone works to live.
yeah.
No one lives to work, which I think is interesting, but not
Considering-
explored.
Yeah, it's interesting considering the fact that it's a utopia and they don't have any needs. So what's to keep me working if that's not what I love doing?
Yeah, exactly. One thing I also wanted to note, Goddard believes that I wrote this down in one of my annotations. Goddard believes that he's like culling society of people who aren't worth it.
I knew it. He's got a complex.
He's got a complex, and I'm like, maybe his patron historic should have been Darwin, not Goddard. And I thought that was really funny, and I thought I was really smart for that.
Yeah.
One.
It would make more sense. It's just like, so, like, I had seen all this stuff about when Silence of the Lambs, when I first watched that movie, and they like talk about cannibalism and these crazy like murderers, they consider people animals.
Right.
They consider them lower than human.
Right.
And like this is pretty common for narcissists,
Yeah.
where they think that they're above anybody else. They're
Right.
essentially a god.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly what Goddard believes. He thinks that he's above people because he was chosen to be a Scythe.
Yeah, he's Goddard.
Yeah, maybe
so-
that's why they chose Goddard, but I think Darwin would have made more sense.
Yeah, I mean, Darwin is evolution, but I don't really
But-
think.
Darwin also believed that you could cull
Yes.
between evolution.
Yeah, exactly. Is that you could eliminate the rest of them because they're essentially yesterday's news.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I could see that, but I'm glad to know that you like the book, and it seems like the storyline itself was the main driving factor.
Yeah.
And that's really great.
Yeah.
But if they had a little bit more character work, maybe that would have been nicer.
I think if they had a little more world building and character work, it would have worked better for me. I definitely think, like, as a YA reader, there's no reason why this isn't a great novel.
Yeah, because like the way I usually put it is I'm either reading it for the story or for the characters, and like
You're reading this for the story.
yeah, and so in that case, like a good example of something for the characters is Avatar: The Last
Yeah.
Airbender. The story's not really great.
No.
Like if you think about it, it's not really that deep.
No.
but you,
It's pretty standard.
Yeah, you watch for the characters.
Yeah.
And especially like the Zuko arc, obviously,
Yeah.
is just iconic. You can't beat that redemption
Yeah.
arc. And so it's all character driven, it's not plot driven.
I'm kind of hopeful that the second book is a little more character driven now that they've kind of come to who they are as characters.
Yeah, so you can explore them a little bit more.
Yeah, especially like the idea of Rowan as Scythe Lucifer, there is a little bit of that for Rowan because he has such a 360 or 180 of his training type, going from Faraday, who's very empathetic,
Yeah.
to Goddard, who is not.
Yeah.
And becoming, like, being trained to be a killing machine is especially that's what he refers to himself several times as. And he doesn't like that about himself. And I think that that's a really interesting character development that should be explored more.
He's got that self-loathing edge that you like.
Yeah, he's got the Zuko edge.
Yeah.
And I also think he was always interesting from the beginning because he was a character. He's like the middle of like 6 kids, in the middle of like 6 generations of children because people can have so many kids now.
Oh yeah, so he's super middle child.
So he's super middle child. He refers to himself, him and his best friend refer to themselves as the quote unquote lettuce in the hamburger.
Yeah. Is that you never really think about it?
You never need it.
Yeah.
And you don't miss it if it's not there.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice if it is there.
Yeah.
It's like, eh.
Exactly.
So he refers to himself as the lettuce. To see him go from being the lettuce and consider it, like fully decide that Citra's gonna win because he's just the lettuce and nobody needs him, but people need Citra. And to then become the killing machine that Goddard has made, and then to choose again to lose.
Yeah.
He was a very interesting character, but you didn't spend as much time with him.
Is this book written by a man or a woman?
It's written by a man.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting to have like an okay female protagonist.
She was okay. She wasn't. I feel like Rowan was a little bit more well-rounded. But I did like that Citra had an ambition to her.
Yeah.
That was kind of nice.
That's what I was thinking is like, normally with male authors, they tend to not write women well.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, you could say the same about female authors, is that they don't write the best men either. And I go, it makes sense.
I think good authors can write good characters regardless, but some focused on the gender that they are more familiar with.
Yeah, I know one of my teachers in high school for English was really good at trying to get you to change your perspective, where she's like, all right, I want you to write a character for your own gender, and then I want you to flip it. And I want you, and like, basically it should be no difference, because everybody thinks the same way, but there's still this issue where people can't write characters right, just because their gender is different.
Yeah. So I think you spend less time with Rowan because he's not solving the murder mystery.
Yeah, he's not the detective. Citra?
Citra is the detective.
Yeah, so she's the detective.
So I think you spend more time with her, especially after Faraday dies, because of that.
Yeah.
And like Rowan's scenes are very repetitive. It's mainly just him training to kill things, and I understand it's not that interesting. His philosophy thought is interesting, but obviously
it's very one-dimensional, though.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to be bad. I want empathy.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
But it's also, there is a little bit of the, he talks about it a little bit. He talks about how he actually feels good when he's good at killing.
Oh. Well,
because he's never been really good at anything.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's such a trope,
Yeah.
especially for like people with low ambition or characters with low ambition.
Yeah.
Is they're like, oh, I found something I'm good at, so I might as well keep doing it, even though I don't necessarily like it.
It's kind of like when you start like weight training and you can like go from like a 5-pound to a 10-pound to a 25-pound or something like that.
Yeah.
He kind of refers to it as that, where he's like, I'm weight training and I can see the results. I can feel myself getting better.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Exactly.
But I don't like how I'm doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, what you're doing is literally murdering people.
Yeah. Well, training to murder.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Right.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
I feel like it's a worthwhile
solid.
read.
It's solid. It's worth reading the second novel, I think.
Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the recording then.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.